Like, what is caramel?
I don't want to say caramel is a caramel, but it kind of is. I don't know how else to say that. Hi, I'm Yewande Komolafe, and today I'm making coconut milk caramels with ginger and cardamom. The recipe is essentially a cooked coconut milk with sugar. You can make them a soft caramel and have them soft and chewy, or you can cook it longer and make it a hard caramel. I'm cooking these as a soft caramel and rolling them in toasted coconut to add some contrast to it. This is an adaptation of a recipe that I got from my mom. My version has ginger and cardamom because I like spicing things up a little bit. These caramels are found on the streets of Lagos. They are something that I ate as a child growing up. I didn't let my parents know I was eating because they're so sugary, but now I can make them by myself in my kitchen, and I can have as many as I want. I use coconut oil and a pastry brush because you don't want your candy to stick to the bottom. So you can also use cooking spray, but I like coconut oil. You're making a coconut candy, it's coconut flavored, like why not? I prefer unsweetened shredded coconut. I'm gonna spread it in an even layer. My first memory of this is getting out of school and running to the roadside seller who sells them and buying them before my mom picked me up. So my first memory of it is actually like sneaking around to eat these. You want a nice even layer on the bottom. So the first thing to hit the pan is the coconut milk. Corn syrup, this is an ingredient that I love to hate, but it stabilizes the sugars in this recipe. Once all the ingredients are combined, it kind of looks like a clear liquid. You can still feel in the beginning that the sugar hasn't dissolved into the liquid. It's a little gritty on the bottom of the pan. So you want to keep stirring until the sugar dissolves. That's a good indicator. As the liquid heats up, it's going to start to bubble and foam. And you stir it to let out some of that air, and so it reduces back down. Every so often I'll check back on my caramel to make sure it's not foaming over the top of the container. So you want to crush the shells. I'm going with ginger and cardamom. You don't have to add these spices to it. I've also tried it with a chili pepper, with some turmeric. You know, you can go wild with your flavors. You can also use store-bought ground cardamom. You don't always have to pound your own cardamom, but gosh, it smells so amazing. That was about 3 pods. I like how it smells. I'm adding my spices in at the very end because the spices are like the most delicate part of this recipe, and you don't really want to cook them too much. You want to check this out?
Listen to it.
It takes about 20 to 30 minutes to cook to the desired temperature. So if you don't have an instant read thermometer, you could still make this recipe. You just have to watch it closely because once it starts to brown, from caramelization to burning happens really quickly. So you don't want your thermometer to touch the bottom of the pan because then you're reading the temperature of the bottom of the pan and not the contents of the pan. Right now it's about 228, so we have a bit of a ways to go. So you're looking for a nice light golden brown, which would happen at about 250 degrees. You want to stand by your caramel at this point and stir it constantly. Make sure you get the bottom of the pan. You also want to have everything ready because there's not a lot of time once it starts to change color. That's the color you want. And my spices are going to go in. The caramel's formed a little bit of a skin on top. When I tip it over, it wrinkles. So you want it just enough of a skin to hold the coconut on the surface. This also just helps when you're cutting it because the caramel is so sticky. Leave it to sit on your countertop and cool completely at room temperature. Don't put it in the fridge or the freezer. That takes about an hour. So I'm loosening the caramel from the edges. It's completely cool, but I just need to get it out my 8-inch pan. There's some coconut on the bottom and the top, but the sides are really sticky. And so I roll them in additional coconut for flavor. I think the toasted coconut also gives it some crunch to it, so some texture, and it helps you pick it up easier. So these are candy wrappers. You can also get parchment paper or wax paper and cut them into little squares to wrap up your candy. It's super time consuming and it takes a lot of mental energy, but it's a labor of love, so. You know, seeing this like full jar of 72 caramels is, you know, it makes me feel good. And now for the tasting. These days I make it as a treat to just have at home for guests or just for myself. I feel like I always taste things the same way. I'm like, mmm.